Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name is Cosk, and today I am joined by John for what will be a very special episode on the Wrestling Universe channel. It will be the first of a weekly Collision podcast, and we start off with a hell of a show. How are you feeling today, John?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on the pod. I'm, incredibly thankful to be the co-host, and I'm excited to talk about this episode of Collision. I have some thoughts, like the result of the main event, but let's get right into it.
All clear, no filler, and we start off. This episode is really bookended by CM Punk, which seems like a common theme for Collision. The first episode was bookended by Punk too. Punk came in for a promo. He kind of hyped up the crowd, was like, this is for Owen Hart. He built up the history between him and Joe. What did you think of this promo?
Well, I mean, it's a fine promo. There's nothing wrong with it. Punk was pandering to the fans in Regina. I mean, I thought that he would, hype up this match with Samoa Joe more. I mean, he did a little. But but it was good, to bring the attention to Owen Hart, the importance. Obviously, he's in Canada and the tournament's wrapping up. So, I thought it was a fine promo, unnecessary, but yeah.
I would. I thought it was a good promo. I mean, like CM Punk has been known as a Bret Hart guy for pretty much his entire AEW run. Him and FTR are the Bret Hart guys, and I know this is another Hart, but like the Hart family is incredibly important to Punk, FTR. I don't know for this case specifically Punk, and it gives you a fan favorite for the tournament because CM Punk he's fighting for Owen Hart. He represents Owen Hart more than anybody else in this tournament, despite his controversies, and I think it was a good way to start off the show. Like overall, gets a thumbs up from me. I always love a CM Punk promo. I think that Punk is one of the best promos in the industry right now. The way he talks is so natural. He has so much organic material. It really feels like it's coming from the heart. He's getting over his new catchphrase, "Tell me when I'm telling lies." So like overall, good promo.
And then after that, they had a video package showing some of the history of CM Punk and Samoa Joe and Ring of Honor, uh, doing what I wanted to see in the promo. So I mean, they eventually accomplished the goal of hyping up that match and getting a point across that Samoa Joe has beaten CM Punk in Ring of Honor, multiple times, and is almost the white whale of CM Punk. The mountain that he hasn't been able to get over. What do you think?
Punk and Joe has really been one of these iconic rivalries of, I guess, the new boom of wrestling post WCW, post ECW. Like, without this rivalry, I feel like wrestling wouldn't have evolved to the level it did. Independent stars wouldn't have been given an opportunity in the major leagues, like WWE, like TNA for a period, and now like AEW. Like, these guys were really innovators of the new era of wrestling, the boom of wrestling. And like this story, I'm gonna save some of my thoughts for the main event because like bit of a spoiler. I feel like they kind of blew their load on Punk beating Joe a bit too early, but we'll get into that later. Um, but this really established this story. I mean, like something that people have criticized Tony Khan for quite a bit has been he expects all of his fans to be like internet, like critically online, knows everything that's happening, knows everything he knows, and like a, a promo package like this to establish the story for those unaware, I think is really really good step. I feel like AW has been doing it a lot recently, not for the past few months, not just recently. They've really learned from their mistakes, and overall, I feel like this opener, them building up to Joe versus Punk, which I really feel is a major major match, which could have been on a pay per view. I feel like it was a step in the right direction. Do you have any final thoughts on this?
No, we can move on.
And we move on to another semi-final in the Owen. Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks. Speaking of history between two men, what did you think of this match?
I thought it was a decent match. It wasn't. I don't think it lived up to my expectations. Especially, I remember they had a match at Grand Slam last year in New York that I thought was better than this one. But it wasn't. I mean, I felt like a lot of it happened in picture in picture. I mean, I remember Ricky Starks went for a tornado DDT, which unfortunately, it happens to the best of us where, he made a mistake and, it just didn't look good. But I feel like the overall point of the match was QT Marshall interfering and then Hobbs hitting the spine buster. And Hobbs gets the visual pin on Ricky Starks, but the ref's distracted. And that ultimately leads Ricky Starks to get the win. So in that, how do you feel about not just the result, but Hobbs splitting up with QT?
Long time coming for Hobbs splitting with QT. I was not a fan of this partnership when it started, and I never really got into it. I think QT is fine for what he is. I'm not like one of these people who's like, how dare QT Marshall be on my TV? Old man shouts at clouds, Like, it's fine. He's a decent promo. He's good at getting heel heat. But, like, I feel like Will Hobbs was being dragged down by being a part of QT's stuff. I mean, overall, if I'm going to talk about the match, I think it was a good match. I liked it more than you, at least. I'm a big fan of Ricky Starks. I feel like Ricky Starks has superstar written all over him. And I can say the same about Will Hobbs. These two are really the project of Collision going forward. Like, they weren't really given the proper time to develop on Dynamite, at least for the majority of their time there. They did have moments like Ricky Starks was playing a more vital role on TV in the past few months, but now it's really his time to develop into a genuine main event guy with the new TV time that's being allowed to him. And I think Ricky Starks was the right winner. Hell, I think Ricky Starks has the potential to win the tournament, which we will talk about later. He's not my official pick, but, like, it's a possibility. The Tornado DDT botch was unfortunate, but I feel like they kind of recovered it pretty well. Ricky Starks, in my opinion, has one of the best spears in the business. Like, the way he, like, goes full impact onto a guy is incredible. Like, he really goes full force. There's some spears which look like a guy's hugging you. He just, like, kind of falls onto you. He's like clutching your chest. Like, it doesn't really look like it hurts. Ricky Starks looks like he's trying to break your back, and I feel like that's how wrestling should be. You shouldn't be attempting to hurt each other. You should be attempting to make it look like you're hurting each other, which I think his spear accomplishes. I think the way Will Hobbs in general accomplishes, Will Hobbs now moving to him, is like he has a lot of impact in his moves. I feel like he's going to be a breakout star in the next few months. A guy who could be main event, just like Ricky Starks, with the time that Collision gives him. I mean, I don't really have too much to say on this other than overall a really good opening match, and a very good decision made at the end. All I really hope is that the QT Will Hobbs, or Powerhouse Hobbs, I guess, that program is short-lived, because I do not want to watch a full-on, months-long Powerhouse Hobbs QT Marshall story. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, just, I think it's exciting for the future to see Hobbs finally get away from QT and QTV, and he just doesn't fit the group. They're doing a spoof on, TMZ, and you got guys like Solo, QT, Harley Cameron. Now you got Johnny TV, and it just Hobbs is this big, strong powerhouse. He really shouldn't be hanging around with that. So I think the future is definitely exciting with Hobbs.
And Hobbs as a face is a very interesting move if that's the direction they're going in. It hasn't really been explored because, like, well, yes, he did have a little face run in, like, the beginning of his career. He was kind of like a darker guy who was kind of creeping into Dynamite, and then all of a sudden he turned heel, and when he turned heel is when he started getting TV time, when he started becoming a fixture on the programming. So if the direction is a face turn, I think Hobbs, I mean, like, I don't know if it's the right move, but I think it's a move. I think there's no harm in trying. Anyways, we're gonna move on. Do you have anything else to say on this?
No, we can move on.
I'm gonna move on next to something I hope you can explain to me a bit, because I heard the words he was saying, but I did not really understand because the words he was saying kind of confused me. We're gonna go to the Miro promo next, where he talked about how something about God, I guess.
So, to me, it was a typical Miro promo. We've seen a lot of these where he's kind of upset at his God. He talks about his wife. And, I mean, the important thing was he teased that something big was coming, which is good because, hopefully something big is coming. Because the problem with Miro is a lot of times, in AEW before, where he would just get these weekly short promos, these short, weird promos, and then it just never led anywhere. So I think, that's very important for them to follow up and not fall into that trap of, let's just have Miro do this, 1 minute promo on every collision, and then it never really leads to any story.
That's been a big problem with Bray Wyatt. Like, Bray Wyatt comes in, he's like super cryptic, talks about how he has big things planned, it's gonna change the face of the company, like keeps teasing these massive things, and it's never really followed up upon. So I really hope with Miro this is followed up upon. He's been quite directionless since he lost the TNT title, really. Like, he had that brief thing with the House of Black that never really went anywhere. He disappeared off TV. Now he's back on Collision, and he had a squash match, and now he's back to these promos. And, like, I hope that they do have plans for him, because he's a genuine top guy in my opinion. I love his aura. I love his matches. I'm a big fan of Miro, and I feel like he could be a top guy in this promotion if they give him the chance. World champion, even, in my opinion, if they give him enough build. That's months down the line. But, like, not much to say overall. It was quite a short promo. I feel like we can move on quite easily.
All right, so next was Julia Hart in action. Now, this really wasn't supposed to be on the show. The Athena, Willow, Nightingale match was canceled. So, if you blinked your eyes, you missed it. It was just Julia Hart getting a quick win over a local talent. And, ultimately, the follow-up, which was more important, was Malakai Black's promo and Andrade's promo. Malakai talking about how Andrade's mask, that Andrade found himself once he took off the mask. Meanwhile, Malakai, it's when he put on the mask, he feels like he can be himself. And then Andrade, talking about what the mask means to him, his, family, culture. So really just story development in this Andrade and Malakai Black program. What did you think of this?
For one, whenever they talk about the mask, I always think of that really, really bad Dream song where he's like, that Dream song where he talks about the mask?
A little bit, yeah.
That just plays in my head, and it's so funny. But overall, to go back to wrestling, for one, I'm not gonna skim over the Julia Hart stuff too much, because I do want to say I think she's improved a lot as a worker. Like, she's not this 5-star worker, but she's decent. She's getting there. She has a good intensity to her, and down the line, I feel like she could make an argument for, say, TBS champion. They seem to be building her up for something. So I'm excited for the future of Julia Hart. When it comes to the promos, really feels like they're building towards a Malakai Andrade match. Malakai seems to want Andrade to join the House of Black. I do not think that's going to happen. If I were to predict what was going to happen, I feel like Rush and either Preston Vance or Dralistico are going to join Andrade, which would make for a weird face-heel dynamic, because Andrade is being positioned as a babyface, whereas Rush and his gang, I guess, are positioned as heel, so I don't really know how that would work. But usually when a wrestler is facing numbers games, they get back up eventually. So I don't know whether it's going to lead to that. I don't know whether Andrade is going to go fully solo, Well, then again, the trios titles are a mix, so like surely they're gonna do something to do with the trios titles. So do you think they're gonna turn Rush, Preston, Drelistico babyface or tweener?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe, but I would like to add another thought that might tie in. I don't know if you've seen on social media Andrade bringing up Thunder Rosa a few times. They took a picture together. You know, maybe the Julia Hart squash tonight, while it might not have been planned originally, might, how that could tie in to the overall story where Thunder Rosa might join up with Andrade and they might do a mixed tag or something of that sort.
I'm very excited for the potential of Malakai Andrade, and now that you mention it, Thunder Rosa coming in and feuding with House of Black would be a good introduction for her. But at the same time, I criticize WWE for this. I have to criticize AEW for this. Champions should defend their championships. I don't like it when a champion is holding a championship and they don't defend it. So like House of Black needs to do some trios action soon. I'm liking this stuff with Andrade, but they need to tie it into some trios action because they're the trios champions. I feel like their main priority should be defending the trios titles. You know?
I could see the point, but I mean, I think I'm not as stiff on title defenses happening a lot as long as they happen, in a decent radius of each other. And because I think sometimes it's, in wrestling there's too many open challenges or title matches happening too quickly. I don't mind if they establish more of a structure in the division. Obviously, that's not exactly what they're doing here, but I'm okay with more distant title defenses, but I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Maybe you build up I think the Acclaim should be done with QTV, and you start building them up for a trio title, which they've mentioned a bunch of times, and you can have Andrade kind of cost Malakai the titles, and you can move on. If they're not going to defend the titles, I feel like they should lose the titles.
I don't know. I would keep it on them.
Agree to disagree? Okay. But like overall, the biggest thing of note I can say about this is Andrade Malakai is gonna cook, and I'm very excited for that.
Me too.
This was before the show, but I think we kind of skimmed over it, so I'm gonna mention it now. We had a Willow Athena promo. Where, I mean, not much of note, which is probably why it was so forgettable, but like, I'm not going to really note the promo because it was quite generic. It was just them kind of building up to their match. More so, like, what do you think of the work of Willow? What do you think of the work of Athena recently? And who do you think is going to win the Owen, like, the semifinals between them?
Athena has been doing amazing. She's had a resurgence of sorts, leading the women's division on the Ring of Honor brand. She's been doing these proving ground matches, and some of the proving ground matches, she's not even facing a good opponent, but it's more about the character work, attacking the opponent after the bell. She really feels like she's just has taken the ball and has gone rolling with it. And this is just my opinion. I don't know if it will actually happen, but I think Athena should actually win the Owen Hart tournament.
I agree.
Because on Ring of Honor, her thing, she's on like a 1 billion match win streak. Not quite. I don't think it's gotten to Jade numbers yet, but she's been proven like dominance, like I think like 20-0, 30-0, something around there, this year. And for her to show up on, Rampage or in against Willow and lose, or in the finals, I mean, I personally think to go with Athena, and then it could even tie into where Chris Statlander's saying, hey, I'm the streak breaker. Well, Athena's got a mighty streak for them to face off in a big TBS title clash. That's at least my take on it.
Maybe title versus title, or not a fan of that.
But I don't. But then a part of me also thinks that Willow might just win on Rampage, because then they might want to do Willow versus Athena on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So I can see it going both ways. I personally like Athena winning the tournament more, but I think both are valid ideas.
I've said this a bunch of times, but Willow really reminds me of NXT Bayley. she's like super happy, super, sweet, loves everyone, but she can kick your ass. I mean, like, another example is Kylie Ray, who, I mean, not to deviate, but like, I really thought Kylie Ray was going to be like a big star, so wishing the best to her. But like, going back to the point, Willow, I think, is great. Athena, I think, is great. Athena should win the Owen. I agree with you there. I feel like Athena has all the potential to be the top heel in the AEW Women's Division, like post Outcast. I feel like this might be a bit of a wild prediction. I feel like the Outcasts are gonna start to like lose their spot at the top once Tony loses that title, because like, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm not gonna have them like stay in there for years, like past their expiration date. Like, fans are already kind of getting sick of them. I think their work right now is working, but I feel you gotta build to that Jamie Hayter return, Hayter Tony Storm at All In, Hayter wins, and that's how you kind of build up to the collapse of the Outcast. And then Athena can take their place as the top heel of the division.
Yeah, no, Athena definitely has it in her to do it. She's shown it with Ring of Honor, just taking the ball, really run with it and make it her own. But, and then with your Jamie Hayter thing, I think it just depends on the timeline of her health, if she's able to come back by Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's not Jamie Hayter, I think Jade Cargill versus the Outcast would be really cool. But like, that's a story for another day. I feel like, do we have anything else to talk about when it comes to the House of Black stuff?
No, we're good.
No? Okay. Well, I really, really like what we're moving on to. Because, well, for one, I just realized we already moved past the House of Black stuff. I'm tired, okay? It's like 2 a.m. here. But anyways, Bullet Club Gold, FTR. What do you think of this match?
Tag team excellence. Match of the night, in my opinion. I mean, this match, I would just describe it as crisp wrestling. Everything done was just great, well worked. One of the things I noted was, this is just me. I like Juice Robinson's senton a lot. I don't know, to me, he does like the jump up and then boom. And then Jay White's heel work is just elite, from, attacking Dax on the apron. And my favorite was when, Jay White ties Cash Wheeler's legs together and just spits on Dax. And then goes to the Moodalock, which we got to give Jay White props on live TV to have that aim with that spit to land right on Dax's body. I mean, I don't think it gets I don't think some people realize how impressive that is to connect with a spit.
For us, experience, apparently.
And then this match had a lot of, building up to the hot tag, near falls. There was a lot of near falls, maybe even a little too much, but the way that they were able to kick out at like the last possible moment was just incredible. Like Jay White, I mean, it's like 2.999. Like, I always get a little nervous. Like, I don't know, if I was a wrestler, I would think I would get very nervous on that, because if you botch that, like, the match is over. Like, it really is elite to be able to kick out that late. There's a lot of great near falls, and it ended up with Juice Robinson getting the pin and BC Gold getting the win. But what do you think about the match? I've given my thoughts.
Well, I would say this is the match of the night, in my opinion. I think it was better than Joe Punk, which I did not expect to be saying. And that's not an insult to Joe Punk. That's a testament to how good this match was. FTR, I hate to say this because I like FTR. I like them quite a lot, but like, they're kind of associated with a certain audience, which I digress. We love everyone here. But like, I'm a fan of like flippy wrestling and stuff like that, but FTR's ability to take it slow, focus on storytelling. I'm gotta be honest, while I love my flips, I choose storytelling every day of the week. I think that FTR tell a brilliant story in every match they're in. Their stuff with Jay White and Juice Robinson, I think, was great. Jay White, like, I was really worried when he came into AEW because, like, he wasn't really getting the proper TV time and stuff like that. I mean, he was kind of in this endless feud with Ricky Starks, but I feel like he's really found his way in this tag team with Juice Robinson. It's a really good introduction for him in the company. It's brought out greatness in Juice Robinson, who, I don't know if you remember, when he came into this company, people were like, why did they sign Juice Robinson? Did they sign anyone? But I think Juice Robinson really showed his unique charisma, his wild side. I think it's been very entertaining. I feel like the counters in this match were off the charts. The teamwork was off the charts. They started off the match building up to a hot tag, which is traditional pro wrestling, and I love me some traditional pro wrestling. I'm stuttering. I'm tired. This match is making me starstruck. But yeah, this was a really, really good match. I'm happy that Jay White and Juice Robinson won. I have to agree a bit too much near falls. I mean, like, kind of felt like NXT takeover levels of near falls at time. It was like, oh, you hit a move, pin, 1-2, kick out. Oh, you hit a move, 1-2, kick out. Like, they're very, very good wrestlers, but I feel like they depended on the near falls a bit too much. But that's a very minor complaint, because like when you have a match this good, it's okay. Like, when you can get a believable near fall off a suplex and a splash, you are great at professional wrestling. The way these guys got the crowd invested in this match, it wasn't even for the titles, it was just an eliminator match, and the fans got so invested. I personally got so invested, and like, let me just like say something a bit personal. I have ADHD. Like, it's very easy for me to lose focus. Like, the amount of times I'm watching a 5-star classic and my eyes are like anywhere but my screen, not because the match isn't good, but because I'm just like, it's very hard for me to pay attention, and this match kept me on the edge of my seat. I was watching everything. All 4 of these guys are like top wrestlers for me, and yeah, this gets an A+.
And just an overall point, I feel like this match illustrates the difference between AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision is the pacing of the show. I feel like on Collision, things get more time to breathe. These guys, I mean, maybe some of it was because Willow and Athena got canceled, so they got a little bit more time to just cook and, put on, a tag banger. But, they, in general, just the pacing of the show, I think, is, you have more time to breathe, digest. And I thought a match like this really benefited.
And they made it official in a promo after this match. FTR versus Jay White and Juice Robinson for next week for the tag titles. Who do you think is going to win this one?
Well, 2 out of 3 falls. I think I would like to see BC Gold win. That's just personal preference. If I had to give a prediction, I think FTR wins by a score of 2-1.
I feel like this match genuinely has potential to be like a undebatable 5-star classic. Like, if they went this hard on an eliminator match, imagine what they're gonna do for a 2 out of 3 falls match. Like, I feel like it's gonna main event the show. I feel like it's gonna get like 30-40 minutes of time, or at least it should be.
Well, I'd have to disagree with you there. I think Punk and Ricky Starks definitely main events because they've been building to this Owen final. So
that's true.
Because either I would say you would open with the 2 out of 3 tag title match, or you put it in the middle of the show and you have the women's final open the show. I mean, that's up the card position.
Maybe it's like the 3 o'clock match, like before the new viewers coming in. At 3 o'clock my time, like 9 p.m. EST.
I wouldn't start at 9 o'clock. Maybe like 8:40, maybe
Hmm.
something like that. It's all about positioning. But there's a reason I think there's 3 matches announced. Maybe they'll throw in a squash or match for fans to catch their breath with the great action coming up next week.
Very stacked show next week. I mean, let's move on to the biggest match next week, not on Collision, on Battle of the Belts. The chairman, Shawn Spears, baby, versus, I wrote Christian, but it's Luchasaurus. um, who do you think is going to win this match, and why do you think it's going to be the best match of all time?
Well, these Battle of the Belt shows, I don't even know why they exist, to be honest.
Me neither, I'm joking.
And it's sad because I remember when they were first like talked about, I was excited because it sounded like they were going to be doing a TV pay-per-view on TNT like 4 times a year, like 2-3 hours, like special event that they can build to. I thought maybe even like a B-tier pay-per-view, but it has not quite lived up to that. As for the Spears and Luchasaurus match, I got Luchasaurus winning, maybe even fairly easily, retaining the TNT title.
I like Spears, but like, yeah, he's not booked well in AEW. Like, I can't really be like, screw you AEW, because when you have so much talent, it's really hard to get Shawn Spears a proper time. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys to benefit from Collision, because like, I think he fits the mold of Collision. I think he's a fairly traditional guy. Like, so like, the only like real note I have of this is good for Shawn Spears, man, getting TV time. But like, you can't really say much about this. And speaking of TV time, Scorpio Sky is getting a good amount of TV time for the first time in ages, as he takes on Action Andretti in his wrestling return. Well, at least AEW return. I don't know if he's been doing indies, but like, overall, what did you think of this?
Well, I thought it was fine. I felt like it almost felt like something was missing. You know, in hindsight, maybe Scorpio Sky should have wrestled on that first Collision, because there was, I feel like, a lack of hype for his return to the ring. As for the match, I mean, I thought it was a decent match. I think there's the argument to be had that Action Andretti might have gotten too much offense in if the point was to showcase Scorpio Sky, because even though Scorpio Sky ended up, winning the match, I unfortunately I thought after the match was over, honestly, I would rather see them push Action Andretti. He was very, very impressive, with the he did like a Spanish fly, just in general his speed and athleticism. But and that kind of reminds me of when I'll let you go in a second. But when Shinsuke Nakamura faced Dolph Ziggler in his main roster debut, and Dolph got a lot of offense in. And nothing against Ziggler, obviously Ziggler's a really good wrestler, underrated, former IC champ. But Nakamura, he was coming in, as this important new figure, and for Dolph to get as much offensive in wasn't as beneficial. But what do you think of Scorpio Sky versus Action Andretti?
What happened to Action Andretti, man? They brought him in. They were like, yeah, this guy's going to be like the next big thing. He beat Chris Jericho in his debut. It was looking great. And now he's losing to Scorpio Sky? No disrespect to Scorpio Sky. I don't care that much about Scorpio Sky. I feel like he's a fine promo. I feel like he's a fine wrestler, but his character doesn't really... I'm not really invested in his character. I feel like he has to do a lot more character work for me to really get properly invested. Action Andretti, I think, is a future star in wrestling, and like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be like, how dare they have him lose. I would much rather they bring Action Andretti on TV to lose in a fairly competitive match than he's on Ring of Honor working 6-man tags, for like the next 2 years, right? Like, working, whatever you want to say about Scorpio Sky, like, I know he's not the most flashy wrestler, I know he's like not the most extravagant wrestler, but he's a ring general, so like putting Action Andretti in the ring with Sky, that's gonna help Andretti. That's gonna help him with his psychology, because Sky, he's been doing this for a while. He's a real veteran of the 2000s, 2010s, I feel like I feel like Sky. I mean, like he has a lot of accomplishments, but like nothing like super memorable, which is a shame because when AEW started, I remember they were like building him up to be like a future like top star with like his. I think he was the first guy to get a pin on Jericho. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was he?
No, yeah, in a tag match.
He was the first tag champion. He's a two-time TNT champion. So like this guy, he's successful, but it hasn't. He hasn't really connected with the AEW audience to the amount that I think his TV time, which he's gotten in his career, has kind of perpetuated. You know, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but I'm like,
I've never been into Scorpio Sky. I mean, he's fine. I don't really get excited to see Scorpio Sky. I mean, with this Collision, I still think he has potential on Collision to develop his character. I feel like the important thing is what happens next from here, because maybe this match was announced the day of the show. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be there. Maybe it was. But I think the important thing is if they're going to continue to push guys to develop that character, get him in a program, and really give people more of a reason to either get behind or hate Scorpio, depending on what his character is going to be.
and you want him to be a good wrestler. That's not an insult to wrestling, because wrestling is like one of the most important parts of wrestling, shockingly. I'm not one of those people who's like, wrestling doesn't matter, it's all about the character. No, that's stupid. It's a wrestling show. You have to be good at wrestling to be good on the wrestling show. But like, when you're in AEW, you are amongst, no pun intended, the elite of wrestling. You've got Kenny Omega, you've got CM Punk, you've got Samoa Joe, Danielson. You have the best wrestlers in the world, so you can't go around like just a good wrestler. You need a character to establish yourself. And when you're 40 and you're not really seen as like a future star, because like guys like, for example, Garcia and Utah, like they're good, they're arguably great, but like their shortcomings are kind of excused because they're young guys. So like they might not be like as charismatic as like your top guys, but they're in their 20s, they have time to develop. Scorpio Sky is an actual good promo, but he's not given the time to showcase that. Like, so I feel like if you put him in a program against someone like Christian Cage and Luchasaurus, and you can be like, hey, I want my TNT title back, and you can have him going on promo battles with Christian Cage, like really get the best of Christian Cage in these promo battles, don't look like a goof. I feel like fans can really invest in Scorpio Sky again. Or I feel like again, because fans were quite into Sky in his first year in the company, I feel.
Yeah, around the early days of Dynamite.
So like overall, I feel like I'm not gonna like judge this too much, because I feel like Sky has potential to like really find himself on Collision. And Andretti, future star. I feel like he's gonna develop really, really well. But let's get into the main event, what we've all been waiting for. The thumbnail of this video. CM Punk finishes the story. Screw you, Cody Rhodes. I'm joking. We love Cody Rhodes here. What did you think of this match?
Well, it was a really good match. I was shaking my head not because of the match, but because of the finish, which is, it's a fluke win. But going into the match, a really good match, hard hitting, especially those like chops to the back of the neck that Samoa Joe was doing. It just felt like really brought the intensity. I mean, in the match in general, Punk, was fighting his best, had some decent strategy, like, the twisting neck breaker. He tried to get Joe up for the GTS and kind of, fell on the first attempt. But on to the finish. CM Punk got the roll up to win, which now to get into my thoughts, I definitely a direction to go, but it's not the direction I would have went. I wasn't particularly happy with it because I wanted them to continue that story for Samoa Joe to have one over on CM Punk and advance in the tournament. But yeah, I mean, the finish, it's not the way I would have done it. But what do you think of the Punk vs. Show match?
Cons. I'll start with the cons. A story, not years, but over a decade in the making. CM Punk beating Samoa Joe, something you've built and built for years. Not AEW, but wrestling in general. This has been their story. CM Punk has never beaten Samoa Joe. This is his kryptonite. And he wins with a roll-up. His first win over Samoa Joe is a roll-up.
And then, but when you think about it, to the AEW audience has only seen CM Punk ever beat Samoa Joe. So it's a little backwards in that sense.
So, that's another good point. Like, you have not established the story that you needed to establish. A top guy can lose a match, like if it establishes a bigger story. Like, CM Punk could have lost to Samoa Joe. I mean, there is a pro here. And the pro is Samoa Joe choked him out after. It seems like they're building up to Samoa Joe versus CM Punk at another date. Which, I feel like this match was good, but like it kind of held back. Like they didn't really reach that
a little second. Bit, yeah, I felt that vibe too.
And like, that's not a bad thing. That's not like a critique of the match, because like it's very clear by the ending that was intentional. I feel like this program has the potential to be a pay-per-view match if they wait for the Jay White thing.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's interesting where they're going with Joe attacking post-match, and the show, then FTR rushed down to, fend off Joe, and then you see Ricky Starks on the ramp, almost like not going in the ring with Punk, so we'll see how that plays in next week. But just my thoughts on the Punk and Joe's story, where that could be going forward. I mean, maybe Joe could interfere in the final next week. There's even the possibility, and maybe this is me wishful thinking, that maybe they could do a trilogy in AEW, like a new trilogy, where the second match takes place on Ring of Honor, because technically, yes, Samoa Joe is the Ring of Honor TV champion, and CM Punk did pin TV champion. So, I mean, I don't think it will happen, but it is a way that you can go where CM Punk faces Samoa Joe on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. That would be huge. And then maybe Joe cheats to win or whatever, to retain the title. And then you have the big blow-off match at Wembley Stadium where Punk finally gets the definitive, no fluke, finally beating CM Punk, finally beating Samoa Joe.
I have something which is just thought of. All in, Samoa Joe versus CM Punk. All out, CM Punk versus Jay White. You can do both programs because you have two pay-per-views.
I don't think they'd go straight to Jay White. I think, at least with Punk's red bag, where that factors in, I think, to me, the all-out main event, especially being in Chicago, I think will be CM Punk versus MJF, title for title. Hopefully Punk loses.
That would spoil Punk Joe Trida, you think?
Well, I mean, that's AEW's problem. Why did they book two massive shows?
Yeah, screw you, Tony Khan.
Well, no, I don't think it is, because I mean, you get the big win over Samoa Joe on the All In show, and that could be like, a win that pushes him towards the title. A big momentum win going into the All Out pay-per-view. And that match with MJF. But then the weird thing is that match with MJF would only be hyped up for 1 week. I mean, but I feel like that's more of a scheduling problem, if anything.
I agree. It's dumb to have them, like, so close together.
Yeah, Wembley, in my opinion, should really be what you focused on. It's going to be a historic show. Likely, I mean, it's the highest attended AEW show in history. And
I'm
to be
going.
honest, nice. And then to be honest, it likely is going to be for a long time because I don't know how they could potentially uh, beat that attendance record. I mean, maybe they could try and do uh, all in. I mean, they run Wembley again and try, or maybe do a stadium show in the U.S. for the first time. Maybe that would draw some levels of excitement. Being probably because I mean Arthur Ashe had a lot of hype. The first Arthur Ashe when that that was the first AEW. That was the largest attendance in the United States since like 1998. So if AEW did a stadium show in the U.S., maybe that would draw similar intrigue. But I think but my general point really is that the focus, in my opinion, should be on building the biggest, most memorable possible show for that Wembley Stadium.
To go back to Punk Starks, who do you think is gonna win that match, and how do you think they're gonna win?
I want Ricky Starks to win, and
Same.
I'm gonna predict him to win. But I don't know. Especially when I bring up that red bag, my gut tells me CM Punk wins. Which I mean, Punk to me doesn't even need the Owen Hart tournament cup. But the argument for Punk winning, I mean, I think Punk winning as a babyface is just the lamest outcome. But when it comes, I mean, there's certain things like maybe Joe interferes and Starks wins,
or I've seen this going around the internet. Bullet Club Gold interfere and Starks turns heel.
Ooh, I mean, I'd be down for that because Bullet Club Gold is on fire, and Ricky Starks joining that train would definitely, I think, would be beneficial for him, and make for a more interesting collision.
But overall, do you have any final thoughts on Joe Punk?
Yeah, one quick one where basically what I was just saying before with the red bag is that I mean, even though him winning as a babyface is, I think, the lamest outcome that could happen, I think the logic behind Punk winning the Owen is that red bag story, where if he's going to be challenging for the AEW World Title at All Out, he's going to be losing, which I disagree with. I think if he loses Starks on interference, I don't think that would affect a potential clash against MJF, but that's just my opinion.
So we've reviewed the entire show now. What did you think of the show overall? Like, would there be something you would change about the show? What's your overall rating? What was your favorite part, least favorite part?
Change, I don't know if I'll get into change because we might be here all day because obviously there's little things here and there, and then my personal preferences of certain guys I like. Well, if there's one thing I'd change, I'd have Samoa Joe win.
Hell yeah.
I'd have him choke out CM Punk, make him fall asleep. but as for my overall show rating, I would give it 8.2 to 8.3. I feel like I'd have to rank it better than the first Collision because for me personally, because I enjoyed the Bullet Club Gold versus FTR. That was match of the night, my favorite part, and I feel like that's the best match on Collision so far. And then the Punk vs. Joe match, I thought was really good too. And then the other stuff in between, there was some decent story building stuff. Nothing too major, but I think overall 8.2 to 8.3 is I'll settle in at 8.25. That's my final rating. What would you rate the show?
I'm gonna go for an 8.5. I think this was a really, really good show. I mean, like, I feel like this would have been a 9th show if Willow versus Athena happened, but destiny forbids, I suppose. An actual reason to watch Rampage. Let's go. But yeah. I think Punk versus Joe didn't exactly meet expectations, but intentionally. It didn't fail either, and I feel like it intentionally didn't meet expectations in the sense that, like, that ending very clearly sets up this isn't over. Punk and Joe, whether it be the next pay-per-view a pay-per-view in the future, like whether this be like a short-term build-up or a long-term build-up, they're going to have another match. So Samoa Joe was screaming, "I'm better than you," when he was choking out CM Punk.
Well, damn right he is.
Agreed. So, yeah, I mean, like, pretty good show. I would say FTR versus Bullet Club Gold was match of the night. I was shocked by how, like, all in, pun intended there, all in they went on that match. I really feel like Bullet Club Gold could dethrone FTR, so next week is going to look really interesting. I mean, like, the biggest takeaway of this show really is I'm really excited for next week's show, because the stuff they've built up for next week's show is, like, genuinely not pay-per-view worthy, because, like, it's a setup show really, but, like, mini pay-per-view worthy. It's like a special. It's like Winter is Coming-esque.
Yeah, in general, I would say that this type of episode of Collision should be what they're aiming for going forward, because especially it's going to be really tough to draw good TV ratings on Saturday nights. I think this is the type of standard that Collision should and needs to have weekly if it wants to be a premier show long term.
So, thank you for joining us. We will be reviewing this show every single Monday, so subscribe, put your notifications on, and like the video. If you've made it this far, why the hell not? I've been Cosk. I have been joined by John. You can find me at Cosk151. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter.com, Y2Wrestling. I have the Shibata profile, making a few tweets here and there as of late.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.